So I talked to a friend of mine, and he said it might be a good idea to do a video to help people out that might be working on an Alfa Romeo Giulia. And particularly, I'm going to be talking about the rear door panels. I haven't actually done the front yet, but I did the first rear door yesterday. And what I did was I pulled the factory component speakers out, and I installed some aftermarket component speakers in the rear doors. I do have an amp and other things that I will eventually be finishing the install with, but for right now I am just running the factory power to power the components, and they sound good, but to be honest, I think they're going to sound a lot better with that aftermarket amplifier with a little bit more wattage. The Morels, the Maximos, which is the line that I used for the rear doors, I want to say it's kind of more like a mid-range quality, not mid-range. I'm talking about price point here. I want to say it's a mid-priced, or you can even say value price. They were under $200 for a set, and that included the crossover. And the crossover is pretty nice. It's a compact 12 dB two-way crossover, and I think the crossover point is at the typical 3000 hertz area. And I did test them on my test bench and played them using the power from my my garage integrated amp, and they sounded really nice, actually. And in fact, they sounded so good, I'm wondering if I'm wasting my money. I got the higher end Vertus, which are like $600 a pair for the front doors, and those are going to be going in the front. But today I'm going to be talking about some customization things that you can do, to make the install work good, and some of the things that I did for the install. And the next thing I'm going to do is switch over and show you some of the tools. So some of the tools that I use, obviously, you're going to want a cordless drill, and this is I'm trying to remember the size of this hex. It's a HW5, so that's an Allen key. So it's a 5mm Allen key is what that is. But I use that for the door panel bolts that I'll show you a little bit later. This is actually a wrench that I used for a bolt on the crossover mount that I created. And then this is a little Torx wrench that I use for I use it for something, but I don't know if that's really required. And then of course a good set of wire strippers and cutters. And actually I use this one because I use the crimper for these crimp terminals. I do use those over near the crossover area. You could just connect the wire straight into the crossover if you prefer to do it that way. I just do the connector in case I need to, take it out for troubleshooting the service or anything like that. You're going to want a Phillips screwdriver, a good Allen key set. I always seem to need those for something. Oh yeah, the mid-range speakers I mount onto the adapter first, and so that's why I use that. And I think this T20 is out here. The T20 is to remove the tweeter, factory tweeter. I'll show you that later. Right now the door panel's on, so I'm just going to be talking a little bit. I had to drill some holes on some of the adapter things I did. So one thing I use as a little tip is I use a punch before I do the drilling through my adapter pieces. And I'll show you more about that later. This I have, I don't think I used it, but I had it around. I don't use it to pull panels, but I have it in case I need a little more strength. I typically rely on the plastic ones. I have them all out here, but this is the one that I got the panels off with right here. I didn't really use the other ones. I also have another metal one too, just in case. But to be honest with you, I don't think I needed this, but I had it. Always have a pair of scissors, cutting heat shrink or cutting foam and stuff like that. I'll explain that a little later. The files are here. After I drill holes through plastic and stuff, I file off the edges a little bit, and then I have a round file that does the same thing. And then I have some sandpaper here, and I use that to sand off some of the plastic finishes. So those are some of the tools that you may need to do this job. And everybody has different tools available to them in their shop, so there could be other things that you may need or want, or that might be slightly different but can still accomplish the same thing. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Some of the things that I found helpful, let me switch views here. So I don't know if you can see it, but these are the clips that go in through the door panels. And I guarantee you will, I've been doing this for years and years and years. And one thing I've learned over the years is you're going to break a clip or two when you take a panel off. So I bought a set here. The only regret I have is this is the only bag I have, and they took a while for me to get shipped over here. So I'm just crossing my fingers that I don't break too many on the other ones. But I broke a couple of them on the one door panel, and I was trying not to. But anyway, that's a tip. So let me talk a little bit about the factory unit. This is the bracket that mounts on the upper part of the door panel where the tweeter is located, and this holds the factory tweeter. And the factory tweeter is actually very nice. It's an ASS tweeter. It sounds pretty decent. But since I upgraded to the Morel, I definitely want to use the Morels. They sound even better. But basically it snaps in here. I'm not going to do that. But originally I thought that what I would do is I was going to take this and use this as a bracket for the aftermarket tweeter. But the aftermarket tweeter is just not quite a size that would work with that. So I had to come up with a custom solution. And also while I'm here, I might as well show you, this is the factory woofer. A lot of people always talk about how small that magnet is, but there are different types of magnets that are out there, and some smaller magnets can actually produce some decent bass. And I will say that for a factory system, these produce decent bass. Not as good as the front door ones. I'm guessing the front door speakers, factory OEM speakers, are a little bit nicer than this. These have, I believe they're foam surrounds. So yeah, they have foam surrounds and they're paper. Now, some people like to criticize paper, but I will tell you, paper actually is quite a good performer. And in our particular case, the Alfa Romeos have a very good seal on the door panel, so they're not really going to get any water. They're not going to hit any moisture or anything, because the inside of the door panel that you'll see later is basically totally sealed off with a hard cover plastic area. So anyway, this is the factory woofer. And going back to what I ended up doing for the solution on the custom mount, I'm trying to do everything with one hand here. Okay, so what I did was, this is actually the Morel tweeter mount, the flush mount, and it does not normally look like this. It normally actually has a big oval flange decorative piece that is connected with that. And what I did is I actually took my bench grinder here and I used it to remove the excess material around the edge, and then I gave myself a little bit of room, and I used a hand file to smooth out the details on the edges here. And then I had some sandpaper that I just kind of sanded things off with. Now, nobody's going to see any of this stuff, but I just like to make everything look like it belonged in the unit. So you'll see later how these go in, but I'm going to put the tweeter in temporarily just to kind of show you why I use this mount. So this is the Morel tweeter after the modification. This is the flush mount with all the excess trim off. And the reason I maintain the aftermarket as a bracket is it holds a tweeter very nicely. It snaps into position, and it's basically not going to come out. But I have a bracket system that I came up with as well, and I'm going to show you that. So what I did is I realized that the diameter of this tweeter is similar, not the same, but similar to the outer diameter here. So if you put this up in here and look at, if you compare these two, let me see it from the side here. If you compare that, it's almost the same size if you see that. Now this is the bracket, which is not being used. So this bracket doesn't be used, so I take that out. But what I discovered is that this Morel tweeter fits perfectly into the door panel. You put it face down so that remember it's on the door card, or the door panel that's on the interior portion is how the tweeter is mounted. And then what I did is I created this custom bracket, and you'll see it's just made out of aluminum strips. I got this at Home Depot. It comes in strips like this, and you can buy this at Home Depot in the hardware section. They have a little area where they have aluminum pieces and stuff like that. And what I did was I bent the aluminum to have a slight shape. And the reason I did that is the tweeter, when it's mounted face down there with these aftermarket bracket, these have these ridges here, and I didn't want to cut those down or anything. I just thought that would decrease the strength of everything. The other thing I did is I did put double-sided tape on this. Now these are not drilled out yet, but these are pre-drilled. I've got the marks made with the punch, so I will be drilling a hole through here to mount so that the factory bolts can mount through the hole. But I did measure everything precisely. This is actually an exact copy of the one for the other door, and so I have this all ready. So the job this morning is going to be a lot quicker because I have everything pre-made. But the first time you do this, you're going to have to spend some time measuring and that kind of thing. So don't be surprised if the first panel takes you a little longer if you have a component set like this and you want to put it in real nice. Okay, so that's kind of what I did with the tweeters. You'll see the results a little bit later, but essentially I did have to sacrifice that aftermarket tweeter mount, but I'm using it, and this is working great for my needs. There was another mount that was a little more bulky that they provided in the kit, and I didn't even attempt to use that because this solution really ends up with a solid mounting tweeter on the mount. The next thing I want to talk about, now I got my speakers from Crutchfield, and they came with a mounting bracket, okay? But actually I had to grind part of the material off with my bench grinder on the mounting area in a couple areas. So that's why you'll see kind of these rough edges here. But once I ground everything down, I filed and sanded everything off, and it enabled me to mount this perfectly on the panel. And basically you can tell that the height is basically the same as OEM. If you look at the difference in the height there, I don't know if you can see that. It's probably not an easy way of doing this. Maybe to turn this upside down. I should have taken that rubber off. Anyway, so you can see this is the bracket and OEM. They're basically the same height. The other thing I did do was underneath where the mounts, I used this weather stripping foam window seal. Got that at Lowe's. You know, they always sell expensive special stereo stuff for all this stuff, and they charge an arm and a leg for it, but oftentimes some of the things you can get at Home Depot work great. So anyway, the other thing is when I actually mount the woofer to this bracket, I run some clear silicone underneath the woofer. I set everything into position, and then what I do is I actually pre-mount my aftermarket mid-bass driver to this bracket ahead of time. And I know the orientation of the direction that I need to mount it on the door. There's only one specific way that this, because of the cutouts I had to do, there's only one specific way that this bracket fits on the door. And once you know that orientation or are familiar with it, then you could pre-mount this. So that's kind of my process. And then also, I think I talked about the orientation. I pretty much like to keep the Morel logo this way when it's installed in the door, even though nobody's going to see it. There's two reasons for that. One is just a look in case you ever looked in there. The other one is that the terminals are right here on the bottom as well. So that when they're oriented like this, the terminals are on the bottom. And I like that better in case any moisture were to get in there or something. The terminals are protected a little bit because they're on the bottom side, and they won't get, the idea is they wouldn't get any rain or so forth from the top end. And this is a little different because this actually does go onto the inside part of the door. I did not put any fast rings or anything like that on these rear doors. I did purchase some fast rings. I did purchase this fast ring set, and I probably will be using this for the front doors. I don't think I'm going to need it very thick, but I'm going to use that, and there'll probably be a little bit of some that I put into the panel. So the front panel is a little different. The front doors put out a lot more bass because there's more area, there's more airspace, and so and also I'm putting more power to that component set at the front, and they're more expensive. So I've done a test with them already, and I don't feel that I could get them to go much lower than what they are right now. And for the rear doors, I think you're just going to be limited because of the airspace. You could put the best driver in the world back there, and it's not going to sound super good just because there's just not as much room there. But these do sound pretty good, and I think with an amplifier they will sound nice. And I'll probably cross them high pass. I'll probably run a high pass crossover on this rear component set, and I'll probably set it at 100 or 80 or something like that, because it's just rear fill information. But I might go lower because they definitely can pound out some nice bass. I tested them on my bench here, and I'm real impressed with the quality of these. In fact, they're so good. I could have had another set for my front doors. I went with the Virtus, which is a nicer, it's a nicer line, but it's a totally different price point. It's like $500 a set. But the front doors, they sound really impressive. I almost was going to build a system without a subwoofer. I do have a subwoofer planned in my setup, but yeah. Anyway, so if you want to save money, because I ran these on the test bench, and I have to tell you, they play really super nice. These would sound good as a nice in the front door panels as well. So that is an idea, but I upgraded and went to a little higher end. I don't know if it was necessary, but anyway. The next thing I want to talk about, I'm going to shift gears here and talk about the Maximo crossover. This is a 12 dB two-way crossover. I believe the crossover point is the typical 3000 hertz. Okay. The speaker system is 4 ohms. And there are no adjustments for the tweeter level or the woofer level, but I have to say, I did listen to these on my test bench. Hooked everything up, and they sound great, very balanced. And I think sometimes that's good that they don't have the different levels of attenuation, because I think sometimes, to be honest with you, I think sometimes people get that wrong, and then they wonder why their speaker doesn't sound right. They probably should have just left it flat. But anyway, but I do understand the concept of having crossovers with different choices for the tweeter level. And the way they accomplish that, of course, is they have resistors within the crossover network, if you all were ever wondering how they accomplish that. But that sometimes is very helpful, because if, for example, in our case, we're running the front speakers up into the dash, and they're going to be bouncing off the window there, a little closer to your ears in a way. I mean, they're not closer to your ears from left to right, but they're going to be up higher than they would be if they were down lower in the door. And I'm talking now, I'm kind of shifting gears. I'm talking about the front stage. I'm talking about the front speakers, and I'm basically talking about crossovers. Well, in that case, you may want to turn the crossover down a notch just a little bit, so that it's not too bright. So that's where it's helpful. And of course, if you have a DSP, I would recommend just setting the passive crossover into a neutral setup, and then do all your adjusting with your DSP, with your EQ that you're running straight out to that, to those drivers and things of that nature. But in my case, I am going to be relying on the passive crossover. So for the Morel Virtus, it's a very large crossover, and I actually mounted that in the trunk, and I'm going to run the wires up through to the front. But basically, that is kind of what I'm doing, and I guess I should get back to the build. Right now, I'm going to stop the video, and I'm going to start working on mounting the driver to the OEM, driver to the aftermarket ring. So I wanted to talk about the little panel trim removal. This piece fits in here like so, and you get a flathead screwdriver, pretty thin one, and or a pick tool. Just be careful, and you're going to come in from the top here, get in there, and then just gently pull out. The bottom piece comes out very nicely. There's a little notch up here that you can use to kind of, get in behind there and get it out. But the key is right here. You're going to see that little tab there. That's the thing holding it in, most of it in. So I'm thinking if you do have a problem with getting yours out, to use some downward force just a little bit, or if you can make a tool, you might be able to make some kind of thin tool. I don't know how that would work. Yeah, it would be kind of tough. Anyway, normally they come out pretty good, but in this case, this one was hard to get out. So just to show you, there's one on the bottom, one on the top, and one here on the side. And you want to be gentle with this stuff. You don't want to tear up your interior area and all that. Just have patience. You'll eventually get it. After you do that, you've got 2 bolts down there. That's a 5mm hex Allen key. I got a drill bolt. I got a drill bit that fits right in there. So you got 2 down there. You got the same size here. And by the way, all bolts are the same length, so you don't get confused. And another tip, but you guys probably know this, is I always keep my trim panels, when I take them off, I put them right here on the seat. That way I don't lose anything, and I know, hey, that's where everything's going to be. And I don't bring them into the shop or anything, because once you lose this stuff, you're not going to be able to order it. I mean, you probably could, but then you got to wait for it to get here and all that. So that's my other tip. The other thing is also the bolts. When I take them out, I put them here. I put everything over here on my seat, so I know, hey, that's where they're at, because that's the last thing I'm going to do once I pull the panel. So, in talking about removing the panel, once you get the bolts out and you get the trim pieces out and the bolts out, the next thing you have to do is start pulling the panel with a panel remover. I'll show you the tool in a minute. Start underneath here in the corner and down over here, and work your way around the bottom. And then once you get enough out, you can pull with your hands a little bit. But there are tabs here, every 4 inches or so. And there is actually, which I don't like, there's a tab that's up high over here. I don't like that. That one breaks off the most. That's probably the one you're going to have to replace. But just keep that in mind, that there's going to be a tab up around this area behind here, holding this panel on up here. Personally, I wish they would make these in such a way that they would only have a few tabs on the bottom, and then use more bolts that are hidden behind panels to hold everything in, because I don't know, the clip systems are hard to deal with to unclip. Either that, or somebody needs to make a tool that makes it easier to do that, but I haven't found one so far. Also, there's going to be a ridge up on top underneath here where this panel sits on. So that's about it. All right. Okay, I'm going to pull the panel here. I'm going to try to do this on camera for you. There we go. Nothing missing in there. There we go. I'll wait it out. Okay, once you get the panel clips removed, you'll have to pull up at 45, pull the panel out at a 45-degree angle, pull up to get it off this track here. Okay, there we go. This piece right here, this cable here. And try to get the camera oriented in there so you can see it right here. So this cable here, it will pull out. You turn it at one angle and then pull it out, and then you'll have to, if you want to remove the whole panel, which I do, you'll have to pull this other plastic piece out. To get this piece out from the holder, you might have to twist it a little bit, and then get your pliers here and squeeze this on the other side and push, and it'll pop out of this hole right here. The next thing you have to do is you have to pull this electrical connector out. It's kind of hard for me to do it, but there is a yellow tab. It's the only way for me to see if I can show you the tab here. Okay, so basically, to review that, one of the things you have to do is, this is actually connected right here, and it just pops out. Just put a pry tool back there and pop that out. It'll pop right out for you. But you still need to disconnect the connector. And the way the connector is disconnected is, like I said, you pull your yellow tab up here, and then you slide this down, and then you're able to get the connector out. And then when you put it back in, you'll connect it, you'll slide it up, it'll snap, and then don't forget to push your yellow tab back in. And then that's how that part is put back together. But right now we're going to pull our panel off, and I'm going to show you that on the inside. Okay, so this is this is what the clip looks like when it's unplugged, and this is the plug-in. Crutchfield gave me an adapter. If you order, that's a good thing. If you order your speakers from Crutchfield, they include adapters and things like that. Usually you have to modify things, but in this particular case, the wire did plug in pretty nicely for me. In my case, I'm not just plugging it in. I'm actually going to use this as my lead to my crossover. I do want to verify with you that this is a full range input. It is not crossed over. Now, this is the base Guilia. This is not the Harman Kardon version. So when I say that, I'm only speaking about the base audio system that does not have the Harman Kardon system. The Harman Kardon system is quite complicated, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure how they did that particular system. I don't think it's too different, but I can only speak right now for this system, which is the base unit. Okay, 3 volts, and this speaker comes right up. That's our next step. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to actually take these pieces off. Get this out of the way here. Just kind of tuck it in there temporarily. So I'm going to take this piece off right here and right here. So to get the bulk of it off, I actually just use nice pliers, twist. Okay. I'm doing this one-handed, but basically I get them off like this, and then I grind them down nice and even with my drum. Might be a little noisy for a second. So the factory speaker's been removed, and this is the adapter. All right, so as I was talking about, the couple things with the adapter is, one, I pre-drilled this because I knew where the hole is, but this hole is for the wiring to go through back into the woofer. Okay, so that's one thing I had to do. The other thing is I had to trim off some of this excess tab stuff so that it would fit in here properly. So this one particularly orients a specific way in here, okay? And that way it can fit, and these holes can line up perfectly with the factory bolts. And I'm just doing this one-handed, so you can see they will line up once they're lined up properly. And I put I put some foam here to seal this off real good, and then on the back of the woofer I put silicone that contacts and seals this area real good, and I bolt all 8 bolts down with bolts. I don't use those crappy screw things that people do, and I will show you that in the next section. Thank you. So what I've done is I've applied some silicone to the back of the woofer for a seal, and I already know the orientation of this this speaker in reference to the different positions of the adapter. So I'm going to go ahead and just flip this around and install this. I'm going to put this together here and pre-install the screws. So the silicone actually holds it in place temporarily, and then I'll put the bolts in, and then I'll clean everything up. Also, I found that these 4mm M4 Allen bolts work pretty good. I don't know the exact length, but looks like about 1.5 inches long. So this is what I did. I sealed in some of these areas with the silicone, and then underneath the driver, between the driver and the adapter, it's silicone. Another thing I do is I put in a little wire tie there to prevent the speaker leads from being yanked out beyond that point. Okay, so I have gotten the driver installed here. Okay. And the morale does turn a little bit, but that's mainly because the adapter had the mounting bolts offset slightly, but it looks okay. In fact, if you look at the other one that's finished on the door, you can kind of see the logo through the grill. So cool. I mean, it's stealth, but yet you can kind of see it. Hopefully my tint is dark enough where people can't read what that is. I don't want them breaking in here just to steal these. Anyway, okay, yeah, so this is all sealed up. So the next step is the custom crossover mount, and I'll mount that next. Okay, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to edit that, but anyway, so this is all installed again, but this time it has the sealer behind the adapter to kind of seal it down, but it actually flattens perfectly flat. But trust me, that's in there nice to give it a nice seal, and this will improve the bass response. And also the seal that I did around there. So this is pretty sealed up. That's the other thing I want to talk about this car. Look how good this is sealed off. It is sealed off so well. Most cars have like a cheap plastic thing in here. You're basically got a nice little container in there, but even so, it's still a small door, so you can only get so much bass out of it, but probably better than most cars. Okay, my battery's running a little low, so I don't know how long I'm going to be able to video, but this is the factory wiring. This is the signal that comes in directly from the amplifier. It normally goes to the woofer, and then there's a separate line here that comes up here, and that is distributed through this module. Down here, actually comes down through here, and it's distributed up here, and that's how the tweeter's connected. The tweeter's on the factory mount is through the door. We're going to bypass that, so we're not going to connect that panel, but we are going to use this to connect to our amp in wires here. So that is what is going to be coming in here. And I pre-made, this is an adapter from Crutchfield, slides right on there. You could cut it and hardwire it if you wanted it. I have this so I could restore it back to factory settings if I really wanted to. Although in this case, these speakers in the back, it probably wouldn't be worth the trouble of opening them up and pulling them out. Even though I like them a lot, they're under $200. So I don't know, maybe I would, but I'm keeping the OEM speakers, and I'm not damaging them or anything, so I may put them back in. I'm not sure if I want to go to that trouble, but anyway, that's the way I do it. So this is me clipping this in. I'm doing it one-handed because of the video, but there you go. It's that simple. And then of course I'll tie this up real nice and everything, and Teso tape it, and then we'll come in here. So I'm gonna run this through and set it up that way. So this is the factory tweeter, and these are the two bolts. This one here and this one here, and that is T20, and I'm going to take that out right now. To get the electrical off, it just plus this tab here, and that comes right out real easy. So as I mentioned earlier, this line I'm going to leave, but I'm not going to use, so I'm just going to tuck it in underneath here. Okay, so it's just going to go there, and it's not going to be used. And I'm actually going to save all this stuff. I took it out before to do some measurements. I took the tweeter out, but I'll just probably keep everything intact because I'm going to probably keep these in case I ever want to restore this back to stock. And I already have a custom solution created, my bracket, and I will show you that in a second. Okay, so we're back, got the lunch out of the way, got some Billy Ocean happening on the background there. Probably can't hear that because I turned it way down low. Anyway, so these are the mounting points for, the factory tweeter. And basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting this in kind of at this angle. And now the reason I'm doing this is the bracket I have is going to go from this point to this point over here, and it'll have a bar that'll come over here. It will have a tight fit, but to give it an ultra tight fit, I put in some of that double-sided tape, which has, I want to say, a good 1/8 inch cushion, kind of like cushion factor, plus it's got the sticky stuff to hold it. I mean, when I put this in here, it does not move one iota.
It's perfect. It's a perfect solution. And to illustrate that perfect solution, I'm going to show you right now. Now I got to drill the tap. I got to tap these holes in here. I marked them, but basically, this goes over here like this, and voila, we have our mount. Now I think our tweeter will mount in somewhere like that. And the other thing is I made this in such a way to where the angle of the angle of these bends. This is this aluminum stock stuff you can get at Lowe's, and you'll need like a bender or a vise or something to put these bends into it, but it bends pretty easy. It's aluminum. And notice how one height, I don't know if you notice this, but one of the angles is higher than the other. That's because I need a little bit more height on one of the angles, and I can't remember. I guess it was this angle. Yeah, it must be this angle. There we go. So that nails it in place, and it just tightens in there perfectly. So I'm going to drill the holes, and I'll be back. Okay, so here we go. I'm here. I got you in on the tightening up phase. Just to let you know, if you were worried about this tweeter popping out, I'm telling you right now, it is impossible. Okay, here we go. Get that in there. That is a Torx 20, by the way. Woo-hoo-hoo. Now, this is not moving anywhere. This is like factory mount quality, okay? I got to do some Tessa tape around there, do a little rounding, some cutting, and then we're good to go. And that is how you do an aftermarket tweeter in an Alfa Romeo Giulia. There we go. So one of the things is we have these spots here where screws are actually in. And by the way, I broke this one piece off. It split in two. They're kind of fragile little plastic pieces, but I was able to save the screw, and then I just ran some tape around it. It's just going to hold a little screw. It's not really a critical member, but it should still secure pretty good when I'm going back in there. Then we have these are bolts. This is the one that goes into at an angle underneath the door handle. This is one right here at the door handle. And just to let you know, the screw that goes here is actually behind the reflector, and it's just a regular this one is just a regular Phillips head, and this is the reflector usually is in this area. Now when you take the reflector off, you want to remove it from, I believe it's, I'm not looking at it right now, but I believe it's there's only one side you want to do it. See how this is designed here? You don't want to do it from this side, and I think it's the bottom piece that you pull on to pop that out. Just be gentle. Okay, so another thing that was different is, and I'm mentioning it here, because the back door uses these larger size bolts. It uses bolts that are actually that size, which is a 10 millimeter. So the back speakers, for some reason, they use 10 millimeter bolts for the back, and it's his OEM stuff. But here in the front, we're using a T25. This is Torx 25 here. So I don't know. It's almost like one company did the front door and the other company did the back, because the front door panel has more screws. I get it that it's longer and stuff, so maybe it needs to be secured better. But you know, the back door has less screws, and but then on things like the speaker, it's like got the big 10 millimeter bolts. But here they only got the 25. Okay. I just wanted to make a comment here. I am really amazed. This is the front speaker. It is apparently the same one that they had in the rear. It even has a foam surround. I have to say, and I still stand by this, these speakers sound great. They're OEM, but they sound pretty darn good. Now I'm putting a Morel in there, so I'm doing a substantial upgrade. But at one point, these sounded so good, I'm thinking, oh, maybe somebody upgraded the speakers already. And I was wondering, hey, if I pull that door panel off, is there going to be an aftermarket speaker in there? Didn't see it, but anyway, a lot of people like to talk about the magnets. I want to make a point. There's different magnet technology out there, and it's not necessarily that this can't handle the power. Now it's only rated at 20 watts. And you know, maybe that's all it's getting, but the head unit, it seems like it's more like it's putting out you know, at least 30 watts RMS, because I've been playing it all the time, and I'm pretty familiar with stereo equipment and amplifiers and stuff like that, and it's a lot more powerful than a general aftermarket head unit. I'm talking about the factory amplifier. So the factory amplifier has a little bit more power, not as much as an external amp. So we're going to be making a big upgrade here once the amp is hooked up and everything. Temporarily, I'm going to be putting the mid bass driver of my component set into the door, and I have to wait another day, maybe this weekend, because I need more time, because I got to pull up carpet and everything to run the wires from the front to the back. I've got everything kind of pre-wired, and I'm doing things in stages. The other thing is I do have to install that tweeter in the dash, and I understand there could be some complications with that. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but anyway. Okay, well, we'll proceed with the installation. Okay, so just like in the back door, I'm going to have to take these tabs off. So another thing I wanted to talk about was the mounting adapter. Okay, and so one thing is, you would think that you could mount this in any direction, and you can, but one of the things I realized on the adapter is that the screw holes for the speaker are not in alignment with these mounting holes for the bracket that mount onto the car. And I will tell you that the OEM holes from here to here are level, and so this is basically the top dead center of the speaker. Now, this is a minor thing, but when you install the speaker onto the adapter, and what I do is I actually install the speaker onto this adapter in my shop. But one of the things I realized was, depending on what position you install the mid-bass woofer on this ring, the logo and also the terminals will be oriented, could be oriented the wrong way if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. So there's two things I want to talk about in reference to this that I learned, that hopefully this will help people out. One is, not only do you have the orientation with that, you really want the terminals pointing down in case water ever comes through here or whatever. It's less likely to get water and short out your terminals. Okay, so that's the first thing. You want the terminals pointing downwards. You want them on this part. So that's the first thing. The other thing is the logo on the dust cover, and this is an aesthetic thing at this point, but obviously you don't want that upside down or totally sideways. It just won't look professional. You want it upright as much as possible. So the final tip is, what you want to do is look at your adapter ring, and you look at the OEM mounting holes here, okay? And you want to find one that the mounting hole is very close. This is where the adapter, the hole on the woofer is going to go, is very close to the mounting hole of where it mounts onto the vehicle, because that's going to be dead top center. So what I've done is I've already done that, and I got the taped one. So this is going to be my top one. But here, for example, you don't really want to pick this one, because look how offset that is. It's offset like 2 inches from here to here. Now, does that matter if it's offset? Nah, not really. I mean, it just means your logo will be twisted a little bit more. In the back, I was a little bit more restricted in how I did it, and so it is twisted a little bit, but it's a minor angle. It's probably a 10-degree angle off, and it actually looks pretty decent back there. So it's more subtle also. And I don't know how visual it's going to be through there, but basically that's something I do. The other thing I'm going to do that's a little different on this part of the job is I have the fastering kit, so I am going to install the stuff back there, but I just got to make sure everything clears, as far as clearance and that kind of thing. But the next step is going to be putting the I'll wipe this down some, and then I'll put my foam, which, like I said, I just went to Lowe's and got the window sealer, foam window sealer, and I will show that a little bit later. Okay. So the next step is I'm in the shop now, and I'm going to be running some silicone under here, attaching it to my adapter, and then I'll bolt everything down, and then I take it into the car and bolt it. But that's the process. So I changed my approach on this particular one. Before I applied the silicone to the backside of the driver, but I noticed that the way that this driver is built is it has some tabs that stick out a little bit here, and I don't want to put unnecessary glue that I don't need to. So it's just a different way of doing it, and probably I could have done the other speakers that way, the Maximos, which are the Maximos are designed a little bit differently. Okay, so I'm going to put this in place and then pull it up. So basically what I can do is I can pre-align it. It's not touching. I get everything lined up basically with the holes, and then I just pull it up, and then I bolt everything in place. So that's going to be the plan. So I got this fast ring kit. I'm only installing it on the front doors. This is going to go in the interior. I mean, on the exterior interior part of the actual door, and it's just like a pad that I don't know, cuts back on vibration and that kind of thing. I had to cut a little wedge cut because there's a ridge in there, and I want to make sure I have total clearance for my window. And this looks like it's going to do the trick, so I'm going to go put this in now. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this in the dark with the lighting here. I really can't tell with the glow here, but this is the back part of that fast wing, and this is that ridge I don't know if you can see the ridge in there. Yeah, so I cut it. I basically sliced a half-inch slice out of there. Not a half-inch, a half slice out, and the thickness of a half, kind of like I showed you earlier. It's in there nice and secure. I got some silicone in there. That won't go anywhere. So there we go. That'll provide a little bit of anti-vibration. Maybe seal it up. I'm going to seal this with a window seal next. And I might use the outer ring. I've never used those before, but we'll see what happens. So for the next step, I'm going to be installing the window trim around here. I can't really hold the phone and do it, so I'll just put it in place, but it basically sticks in place. It's self-adhesive. So I use the fast ring, outer ring. I don't know if that's really necessary, but I just added in there as an added feature. It's kind of hard to tell exactly how far out the door panel goes, and the factory didn't have anything, and I'm not sure how effective these are, but I feel comfortable with that, with it not interfering with the rest of the speaker. So that kind of maybe will seal it off a little bit or cut back on vibration. I don't know, but I feel pretty good now. So this is the speaker mount and speaker for the other door, which I haven't started yet, but it's all pre-made. I've got the wiring harness all made. I got it to the length that I know I'm going to need, and everything's good to go. So basically this is ready to bolt in, but I'm finishing up the first door. I'm going to be putting the panel on in a few minutes. So I was able to get the front parts out, front tweeters out, without taking the side pillars. I think you're calling them A-pillars, but anyway, the pillars, I didn't have to take the covers off those. I was able to get these out. You've got to use the plastic pry tools, and you just have to take your time doing it. You're not going to be able to get any kind of pry tool between the window and between the windshield and that edge, so you don't really need to get these out. Just focus on the side that's on the always towards the inside of the vehicle, on the side of the grill. So trying to remember how these fit in. I think they fit in like this. And so focus on this area here. You'll eventually get it where it's popped up pretty good, but then it's still kind of stuck in there. It's kind of stubborn. And then what I found is once I got in there, I was able to do like a twisting motion where you just kind of twist out. I couldn't really do a video of that. I'd have to have somebody else show me. Plus it really took a while because I had to keep trying. You have to be careful. As you can see, I didn't break any tabs or anything. So the thing I really want to talk about right now is what I've done to modify the tweeters for an aftermarket application. So installed in here, I have the Morel MT120. This is the one that comes with, this is the 1.1 inch tweeter basically that Morel makes that goes with the Virtus component system. And it actually fits in here perfectly. but then I needed a way to secure it in there. Now you could have glued it in there or something, but you know, with hitting bumps on the road and stuff like that, I wouldn't be very confident of that. So what I wanted to do is I looked at the OEM tweeter bracket, and I said maybe there's something I can do to modify it, and I did find that out. I did discover, and so what I did do is this is the part that surrounds the tweeter, and I cut this part off, which is essentially the part that holds the OEM tweeter in. Okay, so what you end up with is this little piece here, and this little piece still has these tabs here, and they fit in there, and then the tweeter fits around there. However, I had to do additional grinding, so you're going to need a Dremel tool for this. And I haven't ground this one down yet, but see this extra portion here on the inside? You need to ground that flush. And then the other thing you want to do is you want to take this all the way down to where there's just a little bit left here. So you're going to shorten each one of these. And I don't know if you can tell, but basically you end up with a little tab like that, which is just enough for you to kind of squeeze everything in and snap it into place. But the great thing is this tweeter doesn't move at all. It takes a while to kind of straighten it out, but once it's popped in there and it's all in there, it's very secure. So, and now this is just going to pop right back into the OEM slot. The thing I'm not sure about is how I'm going to get that wire down in there. But I'm sure I'll figure that out. It looks so crowded, and then it's hard to see because of its location. So won't be the first time I've dealt with it, but it looks kind of tight. So wish me luck on that. Okay, well, I'm going to finish mounting the second one, but this one is all good to go, and it's holding very nicely. Okay. Oh, the other thing is, this is a magnetic Morel. This is for the Morel people. This screen goes over the tweeter and it kind of magnifies in there. You really just need to take it out because it would just make it even harder to get everything in. And then the magnet holds on there, but it would allow it to slip around. So you're just going to sacrifice this. So I just finished the other side. This is the driver's side. I actually did the passenger side first. So anyway, we got everything in there. Those are the tabs that were modified. You can see the tweeter sits in there. It's nice and tight. It's not going to go anywhere. I took the logos off the tweeter grills and was able to clean the backing, and then I applied it with some rubber type glue, just a little dot of it in there. I think it'll hold, and I could always take it off if it doesn't, but we'll see how it does in the heat and so forth. But it should do okay, I think. We'll see. There's not much movement in that area, so I'm pretty confident that logo will stay there. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just now getting to the video. I've basically finished the install. I'm just finishing up this custom thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. So this is my subwoofer level control from my audio control LOC line output converter. Okay, and I even drilled the hole here so the LED would work. You have to take the LOC unit together, and there's basically a chip. It's basically a chip with an LED on it, and underneath this there's a bolt, and it just bolts right in place. So you saw I had to carefully align the holes. You can't use what you think is the center on the back. You need to mark everything from the top to make sure you get at least your initial hole drilled. This one right here, I wanted this to line up perfectly. I wanted this to line up perfectly with the center, and it is on center. But here I've got the LED even. Yeah, pretty cool. But I did have to figure out how to. I basically had to take. I didn't have to take the console out, but I had to definitely take off the rear bolts so I could lift it up. And I ran the wire through the back here. There is a channel in the center here to run wire through, which was great. So I have my fish utility thing for wiring, and I just ran it through the back under here in this area, and I ran it through here, and that enabled me to grab the signal wire and run it through. To get it through underneath this part, I just went down through and pulled it out and came around the corner here. You can see where it's at right here. This is the wire right here for LOC, and it goes to the center. And then I'm planning on running that back on through. I think I'll even go through the center there, just because I'm right here right now. And the way you take this piece off here is a pry tool on the side pieces. I know I'm not showing this from the right area, but maybe I'll show you when I put it back together.
Okay, so I'm going to do a summary video of the Alfa Romeo upgrade for the audio system. Again, this is the base system, not the Harman Kardon system. And I'm just going to be doing a very quick overview. I'm not going to play the system. It does sound phenomenal, and I am pleased. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. Right now, I'm just kind of showing you what everything looks like. So we'll start with the inside of the car. So the system is in. I actually have the radio off right now, but what I'm showing you are just a couple little things I did. I added the little Morel logo on here. I had that extra from one of the speakers. So I went ahead and put that on there. It comes off if I want to take it off, but I thought it looked kind of cool on there. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think in another video, I've got the audio control bass control knob. And one of the things I did say in the video that wasn't clear is I had to actually take apart the unit. When I say the unit, I had to take apart the audio control unit to install it in this tight space, but it's in there securely and bolts in there. And you have to be very careful and measure to get your holes drilled here, but this is plastic. But you got to get it right the first time, because otherwise you're going to have to replace this piece. So I was a little nervous about it, but it all worked out. The other thing is the tweeters are mounted in the factory location. There we go. Maybe you can see that there. So those are the front grills. So that's where the Morel tweeters are. The mids are under there, but you can't even see them, but they're in there all factory. And now we'll go to the back door real quick. I think what I'll do is I'll just show it here with the door open so that the light's a little better. The woofer's in here. At the right angle, you can see the Morel logo. Under certain light, right now you can't see it, but the Morel logo on the dust cover does show at certain angles. And of course that'll fit in the factory location. And then the Morel tweeter is fit in there. Again, I got the logos off of the grills and put them in place there on the outside. And I could always take that off, but I kind of think it looks cool. Let's go to the trunk. Okay, the trunk of the car. And again, I excuse for the lighting, but basically everything's OEM. The 8-inch woofer is behind here, behind a custom enclosure that I built for it. It's an 8-inch Polk DB subwoofer, single voice coil, 4-ohm speaker. I'm running 200 watts to that. And this is my cover. It comes off for me to make adjustments. So basically I made these glass doors here, and so I can come in here and adjust my settings. I have some neon I'm going to run in there, but it's not hooked up yet. And you can still access the factory fuses from here. And these are the fuses only for like the LOC, so there's hardly any amperage going through here. I have a full-blown fuse box in the front section here, and this has a service door here, so that's where the main fuses are. And then I make all my amp settings. I will put the covers on. They're not on. I was making some final adjustments, but I do have it where I want, so I will be adding those on. I have covers, and I actually painted them white. And the reason I did that is they will show up pretty cool with the neon light that's going to be glowing under here. And I'll have a switch for that where I can turn it on and off. Okay, so going back to the amp compartment, you might not be able to see it, but I'll push it up. Might be hard to see in this light. But I got the covers in and everything. Everything's been adjusted. And then I got a plexiglass window here, right there. And there's going to be neon underglow under here. These are the vents for the amps. And then I got my service area here.